In this video, we will be talking about the 2024 U.S. Senate elections, and we will just be going through all the races. Now that we are done with the 2022 midterms, we are finally over with it. It is New Year's Eve. 2023 starts if you're watching this now, it starts in less than 4 hours, and it's something that we will be looking at a lot in the later weeks, months, and years to come is the 2024 Senate elections. They will be so important. And this is my my second prediction for these Senate elections. I did do an election night for the Senate and governors in 2024, and this is my analyzation of that video. And let's get started. So Joe Biden will be the president in 2024. These Senate elections will be held with many governor's elections that will be held. All the House races will be, going on with the Senate elections, and the most important, the presidential election will be going on with all these Senate elections. So Joe Biden could be voted out of office, depends on who the Republican nominee is. Could be, could stay in as president, and that will, Joe Biden, top of the ticket, definitely will affect how many Democrats perform in 2024. So let's get started. So we will start off with safe states. So these states will be decided by 15% margin or more. Washington, no surprises here. California, these are safe blue states. Kirsten Gillibrand in New York, Chris Murphy in Connecticut, Sheldon Whitehouse in Rhode Island, Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts. We do have Bernie Sanders in Vermont and Angus King in Maine, who both are independents but caucus with the Democrats. But I'm just going to fill them in as Democrats right now, just so it's easier to see. They vote with the Democrats like all the time. They really are not independents. And I will talk about Maine a little bit. People are saying that it could be at least a little competitive, but Angus King is very popular, and Janet Mills won by a safe margin this year, the governor. And Janet Mills is not as popular as Angus King, but she was able to win by a safe margin. So I do believe that Angus King will be able to win by a safe margin. Maryland, Ben Cardin might step down in Maryland, and I think that Jamie Raskin, I think that he's the guy that could fill in that seat, but who knows. And then we have, someone random in Delaware. We'll talk about Virginia later. And then finally we have the state of Minnesota, and this is one that typically isn't ever safe for either party. It usually goes to the Democrats, but it's rarely a safe state. Scott Jensen did not win by more than 15% here this year in 2022. However, Amy Klobuchar is up in 2024, and she is insanely popular. Looking at her previous wins, she outperformed all the other Democrats in her state by wide margins, and I don't see her having any hard time at winning her seat once again. I think that that's going to be a safe margin for her. So now let's go into safe Republican states. Wyoming, we have Cindy Hyde-Smith, Cynthia Lummis is who I'm thinking of. Cindy Hyde-Smith is in Mississippi. Utah, we have Mitt Romney, who I do believe will win his primary. There's speculation that he might be primaried, but looking at Utah, I think that he will hold on to his seat. North Dakota, we have Kevin Cramer. In Nebraska, Nebraska's a little special because, the regular election is safe, but we also have a special election in Nebraska this year, and this is due to the incumbent Senator Ben Sasse retiring this year to become the president of Florida University. So we do have a special election there in Nebraska, and I do believe that it will go to the Republicans by a safe margin. Josh Hawley, safe margin. Marsha Blackburn, Roger Wicker, those are going to be safe. And then Indiana, Mike Braun is stepping down to run for governor. This one will probably go to Jim Banks, a U.S. representative, but it could go to other people. Only time will tell. And then we have the state of Hawaii, which I forgot to characterize as safe for the Democratic Party. So that puts The Democrats at 41 seats, the Republicans at 46. So Republicans right now have a 5-seat advantage. You need you need 51 seats for the majority. But it will depend on who wins the presidency, because say the Republicans pick up the presidency, they will only need 50 seats instead of 51, because that vice president is the president of the Senate and the tie-breaking vote. So, looking at this map, I should have said this earlier, but it's really going to be hard for Democrats to win, to keep Senate majority. It's really looking like a hard time for Democrats in 2024, but we do know that they have outperformed much, like a lot this year, and yeah, whatever. So, let's move on. So we'll move on to likely Democratic states. So these states, we know how they're going to vote, but it will be a 5 to 15% margin for that candidate. So where should we start? We should start with the state of New Jersey, which will be somewhat close to being a safe margin, 15% or more. Here we have Bob Menendez, who only won't win by a safe margin because of his scandals. Cory Booker, the other senator, would win by a safe margin. He did in 2020. But Bob Menendez is not a very popular senator at all. And, in the 2021 gubernatorial election, Jack Ciattarelli made the election very, very close. And, especially with an unpopular senator, this one could be a sleeper race, and this one really could be safe. In Virginia, if Glenn Youngkin runs it, it'll probably be a lean margin. If he doesn't, it's more likely that he doesn't run. But I'm betting on Virginia, Tim Kaine being reelected by 5 to 15%. As of right now, Michigan, I'm thinking Debbie Stabenow wins by a likely margin at this point. If we're looking at the Michigan GOP, there is not one leader right now that could step up, challenge Stabenow, create a movement, and win. John Gibbs is the only guy, not John Gibbs, John James is the only guy who is somewhat leading the Michigan GOP, but he's a congressman. He won his congressional election this year, and he's not running for Senate, obviously. So at this point, Michigan, as close as it was in 2020, I'm not seeing it for the Republicans here. I think that this is a very Democratic state for years to come. I don't think that Republicans will do very well here in these following years. And then we have Pennsylvania. Bob Casey is the incumbent here. And we are seeing a similar situation with Michigan, and this might deserve another video, is that there are no strong leaders of these state Republican parties. Michigan, we saw Tudor Dixon absolutely fail. In Pennsylvania, the Republican Party is stained for life. Dr. Oz proved to be a horrible candidate, losing to Pennsylvania losing to John Fetterman by a wider margin than Trump lost against Biden in 2020. And Fetterman was not seen as a strong candidate. And then Doug Mastriano lost by 19% in the gubernatorial election this year. 19%. It went to Josh Shapiro by a safe margin, a state that went to Biden by 2. It shifted 17 points to the right on the gubernatorial level. So my point is that there is not any strong Republican leaders in Pennsylvania along with Michigan. If we're looking at who's most likely to be the nominee for Senate in 2024, looking at who's, likely going to run, I'm saying Dave McCormick wins it again. And I do not think that Dave McCormick, had he been nominated earlier this year instead of Dr. Oz, I do not believe that Dave McCormick would have won against John Fetterman. Dave McCormick is not all that strong of a candidate. I don't think that he would win in 2024, especially against an incumbent senator, Bob Casey, who is popular. Pennsylvania goes to the Democrats by a likely margin. New Mexico goes to the Democrats by a likely margin. We have an incumbent, Martin Heinrich, here. I think that Martin Heinrich will win this seat in New Mexico. Where should we go next? Let's move on. Yeah, this is it for likely Democratic states, so now on to likely Republican states. Texas, I believe, will go to Ted Cruz. By likely margin, but this is totally hinged on whether or on whether who the or well, you could say this for all of these races, but especially for Texas, it really depends on who the Democrat is because there are a few really strong Texas Democrats that could challenge him. Number one being Julian Castro. If Julian Castro is nominated, I think that this race would be insanely close and receive a lot of national attention as 2018 Senate election here, Cruz versus Beto was. I don't think that they should nominate Beto again. I don't think that Beto is going to run again. You know, he is at this point a perennial candidate. He's run three times. In a row and failed. And I don't really see him having a political future after this. I'm saying Texas goes likely are at this point. Florida likely are for Rick Scott. It's not going to be safe for a few reasons. Number one, Marco Rubio won by a safe margin this year. Ron DeSantis won by a safe margin this year. Rick Scott is not nearly as popular as Rubio or DeSantis. He's just not that popular, especially like among independent voters. They're more likely to vote for Rubio or DeSantis than Rick Scott. Number two, Stephanie Murphy has an 80% chance of being the nominee. She's a U.S. representative, and she is going to be a much stronger candidate than Charlie Crist was, or than Val Demings was. I see Florida likely our state for Rick Scott. Where should we go next? That's going to be it. That's going to be it. Okay, so now moving on to lean states. So Republicans at 48, Democrats at 46. And really, like the 50 state thing, it really does depend if Democrats win the presidency again. At this point, I'm thinking that Democrats are more positioned to win the presidency because of the fact that Donald Trump is best positioned to win the Republican nomination, and Joe Biden is for the Democratic nomination. And I do see Biden defeating Trump in a general election rematch. So on to lean states, lean Democratic states. Where should we start? We should start with the state of Nevada. And this is the third out of the 4 states where there are no competent Republican Party leaders. Okay? It's going to be Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona. In Nevada, and same for Arizona, and Michigan and Pennsylvania. After these 2022 midterms, there was a party revolution in these states, and now they have no competent leaders, and they're failing. Jackie Rosen, the incumbent, is a popular senator. And who's going to challenge Jackie Rosen? Adam Laxalt? No, he lost already. Rick Harrison? Anybody who could possibly challenge Jackie Rosen is an awful candidate. And, who's like Sam Brown, like all these candidates are just awful. And would have no shot against her. Especially looking at Catherine Cortez Masto's performance in 2022, I see this as a lean Democratic state. Arizona's tricky. So in Arizona, we have Kyrsten Sinema, the Democrat who has left the Democratic Party, running in 2024 as an independent, most likely, against a Democrat who is like 95% going to be Ruben Gallego, and a Republican. I think that Mark Lamb is going to win the Republican nomination. That's controversial, but I'm telling you, and I will clip this part out of this video and repost it in 2 years. But Mark Lamb is going to be the nominee, and I'm pretty confident about that. He is a sheriff in Pinal County, and I think that he would be the best candidate of the potential Republicans. And he's actually one that I could see stepping up and being sort of like a leader for the Republicans. But anyway, Arizona, I see Kyrsten Sinema winning 15% of the vote here because voters are very nonpartisan in Arizona, and there are a lot of independents. And a lot of those independents will vote for Kyrsten Sinema. But those independents in 2020, who did they vote for? Mostly, they voted for Joe Biden. So these independents voting for Sinema are really going to hurt Ruben Gallego. And Nevada or Arizona is very tough. Now, make my prediction later, but that's my reasoning right there, and it'll explain my prediction. Wisconsin, lean margin for Tammy Baldwin. She's a popular senator. Not really any strong Republican to win against her. I mean, there's, I don't know, Scott Walker maybe once again, Tim Michaels, but really even Scott Walker isn't going to win against Tammy Baldwin. She's an incumbent. She's very popular. She's a good candidate for Wisconsin, better than Ron Johnson. Where should we go next? We should go to Tilt State. So, with this, we have 4 states. Oh, sorry. We're on lean states. Sorry, we didn't even do lean Republican states. That's my fault. There's one. State of West Virginia, I think, goes to Alex Mooney by a lean margin. I believe that Alex Mooney will become the next senator from West Virginia, ousting Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is a very moderate Democrat, but there were too many factors in 2018 that gave Joe Manchin a win. I mean, the Republican was so weak. Donald Trump was in office. Times are different now. It's even become a little more Republican. So, even though Alex Mooney isn't like a phenomenal candidate, he is a U.S. representative. He is like the representative for half the state. That's, already a strong candidate right there. And I don't see Joe Manchin hanging on. I'm saying this one is a lean margin for the Republicans. So that's it. We have 3 states left: Montana, Ohio, and Arizona. And so these states will be decided by less than 1%, so extremely close races. I think that all of these will be insanely close. No more on the state of Montana. I think we'll go to Jon Tester by a tilt margin. Montana voters are very nonpartisan, very bipartisan. A lot of the Republicans are moderate here. They're willing to vote for the other side. I mean, Trump did significantly worse in 2020 here than he did in 2016. The 2nd congressional district here. One election that we do not talk about enough is the 2nd congressional district election in Montana this year. It was decided by 4 points. Ryan Zink only won by 4, and no one even talks about how close that race was. And, with it shifting so much to the left, the state of Montana, more people are moving to Montana. They gained an electoral vote. So because of that, these metropolitan areas are growing. That means more Democratic voters, as it does in Georgia, as it does in Texas. So Montana, I think, will go to Jon Tester, bipartisan senator. I think that he fits the Montana aesthetic very well. And then we have Arizona. I think will go to Mark Lamb. I think that because of most of the independent vote in 2020 went to Joe Biden, I think that because Kyrsten Sinema runs an independent campaign, steals a lot of those independent voters away from Ruben Gallego, I think that would result in a Mark Lamb victory. And remember, I did more reasoning on that before. So we have one final state, the state of Ohio, and I see this as a state that goes to a Republican. And it's very undecided at this point who the Republican is, but I do believe that Sherrod Brown will be ousted from the Senate. He is the incumbent from the state of Ohio. It would be really hard for him to hang on. I mean, looking at Ohio, it has shifted red so much in the past years. Even a Democrat, Tim Ryan, who was thought to be a very good candidate, still lost by the same margin, basically the same margin that Biden did in 2020. And J.D. Vance, the Republican, was thought to be an awful candidate, running an awful campaign, but still, it went to J.D. Vance by practically the same margin as it went to Trump. So, Ohio, I see this one as a state that Republicans are able to pick up. They pick up the states of Arizona, West Virginia, and Ohio. That gives them 51 seats in the Senate. Democrats, 49. So, thank you all for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would mean a great deal to me. And I hope to see you all next time. Thanks for watching.